I still remember the way her voice trembled, half laughter, half pain, when she said it. The past had shown up on my doorstep, not as a memory, not as a rumor, but as a living, breathing person who knew the boy I used to be far better than the man I had become. And when she repeated those words, I felt my chest tighten, as if time itself had circled back to ask me what I really stood for. That childhood promise, one we made with sticky hands and grass-stained clothes, suddenly didn't feel silly at all. It felt like a reminder of kindness, of loyalty, of the things we unknowingly vow when we're too young to understand them. And that's how this story began, with a girl I once knew, and a promise I never realized would matter this much. Before we dive in, if you enjoy heartfelt stories about life, humanity, and the moments that change us, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. Your support keeps TruthLines USA growing and helps us share more stories that speak to the heart. Her name was Lily. Mine, as she used to say with a teasing grin, was the boy who thought he could fix everything. She lived 2 blocks from me when we were kids, long enough for us to run back and forth between our houses all summer, but close enough that our moms treated us like siblings. We spent entire afternoons making mud pies, climbing trees, and pretending the world would always be as simple as it felt in those sun-soaked days. We were 7 when she made me promise. It happened on her front porch as fireflies blinked in the yard. Lily had just watched a movie about soulmates, and she turned to me with the seriousness only kids could muster. "Promise you'll marry me when we grow up," she said. And I promised. Not because I understood romance or the future or what forever meant. I promised because she was my friend, because she looked sad that summer. Her parents had been fighting a lot, and I didn't know how else to make her smile. That was my kindness back then. Simple, uncomplicated, childlike. But then life happened. My family moved away when I was 10. New school, new friends, new everything. We kept in touch for a few years. Letters that grew shorter, calls that grew less frequent. And eventually, our friendship became a warm corner of my memory rather than an active part of my life. I didn't know what Lily had gone through after I left. I didn't know what she lost, or who she became. Not until the day she showed up again. It was almost 20 years later. I was living in a small town in Colorado, working a steady job, doing all the responsible adult things I used to think would make me feel fulfilled. But something always felt missing, like I had misplaced a piece of myself somewhere along the way. That afternoon, I was coming home from work when I saw someone waiting near the steps of my apartment building. A young woman, petite, with her hair tucked behind her ears and her hands fidgeting with a strap of her backpack. I almost walked past her, until she said, softly but clearly, "Daniel." I froze. No one had called me that in years. Everyone else used Dan. I turned, and when she smiled, shy, hopeful, almost unsure, recognition hit me like a warm breeze from another lifetime. "Lily?" She nodded, and just like that, 20 years collapsed into nothing. We went to a cafe nearby. She ordered peppermint tea, I got coffee, though my hands were shaking too much to enjoy it. The conversation started awkwardly, 2 adults searching for pieces of children they once were. Then she told me the truth. Her teen years had been hard. Her parents divorced. She bounced between homes. She struggled with anxiety and self-worth. She felt alone even when surrounded by people. She kept my old letters in a box because they reminded her of a time when she felt seen and safe. And then she said the line, that strange, vulnerable, unexpected line, "You promised to marry me when we were kids." She tried to laugh it off, but her eyes, they said something deeper. Not that she came to claim the promise, but that she came to remember kindness. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know how. My heart felt full and heavy at the same time, like hearing an old song that hits different when you're older. So I asked, "Does that promise still count?" I said it lightly, almost jokingly, but my voice cracked, her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head and whispered, "I didn't come for that. I just needed to see the one person who was kind to me before I knew how much I needed kindness." Her words broke something open inside me. Here she was, not asking for love or commitment or the fulfillment of a childhood pact. She only wanted to reconnect with someone who made her feel human at a time she felt invisible, and that realization changed me. We spent the next 3 hours talking, not as strangers, not as long-lost friends, but as two people rediscovering a shared truth. Kindness isn't small. It lasts. It echoes. It can anchor someone through storms you'll never see. I learned that Lily had moved to Colorado recently for a fresh start. I learned that she had no family nearby. I learned that she felt lonely and overwhelmed, unsure if she had made the right decision. So I did something simple, something human. I offered to help her settle in, show her around town, be there, just be there, without expectation. That one gesture opened the door to something unexpected. Weeks passed, then months. We became friends again, real friends, adults who shared fears, goals, jokes, heartbreaks. She told me about her love of painting, something she had never pursued because life kept getting in the way. I encouraged her to start again. And when she finally displayed her work at a small local art show, I stood in the front row cheering louder than anyone else. And she helped me too. She saw my stress, my burnout, my loneliness, the kind hidden beneath routines and responsibilities. She brought lightness back into my life in ways I didn't even know I needed. One evening, as we stood in her tiny apartment surrounded by half-finished paintings, she said quietly, "You know, I used to think promises were childish, but now I think they just show what we value most before the world teaches us to hide it." I didn't know it then, but that was the moment I realized I was falling in love with her. Not because of some childhood vow, but because she reminded me of the version of myself I used to like. We never officially talked about the promise again. Not for a long time. But 1 year after she showed up on my doorstep, we were sitting on a hillside watching the sunset, her head on my shoulder, my fingers brushing paint stains on her hand. And I asked quietly, "If I made a new promise, would you want it?" She didn't speak. She just tied her pinky around mine the way we used to as kids, and whispered, "Only if it's made with kindness this time, not obligation." So I promised her something real, that I would try, that I would show up, that I would love her the way people deserve to be loved, patiently, honestly, gently. We aren't kids anymore. Life isn't simple. Promises aren't made on porches under fireflies. But I learned something powerful through Lily. Kindness, small, simple kindness, can outlive years, distance, pain, and silence. It can bring people home. It can rebuild what life breaks. And sometimes, it can turn a childhood promise into a grown-up love built on compassion instead of memory. So if you're watching this, here's the part I hope stays with you. Be kind, even in small ways, even when it feels silly or insignificant or unnoticed. Because you never know whose life you're shaping. You never know who will hold on to the moment you thought was fleeting. And you never know how that kindness might return to you. Years later, in unexpected ways, with unexpected meaning. Kindness doesn't just change others, it changes you. And sometimes, it even brings you back to the person you were meant to become. Thank you for listening, and may kindness find you wherever you go, and may you pass it forward every chance you get.